G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Rocky Road's 4x4. Today we've got a bit of a different one. So what we're going to be doing, taking a look at this King's Dominator X winch that I picked up off a mate. He said it let go on him. I haven't got the control box or anything. I'm going to have to go source that separately. But we're just going to dive into it, check out this gearbox. I'm not going to worry about the electrical side of it because I've already taken it apart. There was no moisture, so I just put some Permatex around that. The barrel, there was no water when I opened it up. There was no water in there. We're just going to rip into it. Going to take off the lid to the gearbox and see the amount of grease under there. I've heard that that when they come from factory, they don't have a lot of grease in there. So we're going to pack it with some more grease and see if we can figure out what caused it to let go, and maybe it was just a one-off thing, and maybe it'll just work again, but yeah, we'll see. So the first step is, what I want to do, I've started taking it apart. So there's all these, what are they? They're a 3mm Allen key. Going to go and take all them off, and then that plate should pop up and we'll have access to the gearbox. So I'll pop that one aside and I'll do a time lapse of that real quick. Rightio, we got all those out there. There's 10 3mm Allen key head bolts that hold that on, and I'm just going to take that off. I just want to point out that that gasket, it probably does do, but what I'm going to do is put some grease around that. Just grease up everything really, because like, look on these gears. Hardly any grease in there. And that's not ideal for when you're doing big winches. This grease here, I did put that in the other day. I thought, I'll just pull it apart and pack it a bit better than I did. Just going to go and pull this these gears out. So there's one tri-spline gear. We'll pop that down. Oh, as you can see, hardly any grease on them. Put the second one out. There's the second one, and remember the order for these as well. Remember the order that they come out. And then we'll grab this third one down here. You can't really mix it up because they are different sizes and they are different splines. But yeah, just something good to keep in mind. And if you have a look in here, you can sort of see it. Well, it's sort of what you can't see, and what you can't see is grease. Very, very minimal grease in there, and obviously when they're getting hot and metal on metal, is not really what you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab some grease. I've got some wheel bearing grease. It's just like any grease will do. Well, not any grease, but you want a high quality grease. And I know that wheel bearing grease isn't going to wheel bearing grease isn't going to cause me any issues. So I'm just going to grab, first of all, I'm just going to actually have a look. I can't see any teeth chipped. It all looks pretty good. These gears look pretty good. Doesn't look like this winch has done a lot of work. It's only from what I can see anyways. The fact that the gear teeth aren't rounded off like a high usage winch would be. But yeah, no, that doesn't look too horrendous. Well, some of those teeth are actually pretty sharp. Rightio, well, we'll just grease this one back up, I guess. chuck it back in. There is a small nick right there. I don't know if you can see it. Small nick. I don't think that means anything, to be honest. There's a few little scratches in that plate, but that plate doesn't really do much except for hold the gears in place, but there's no chips out of any of these teeth. They all look good. So yeah, right. So we're going to grab a liberal amount of grease, get it right in there, and just go on them splines, just get it all in there. As much grease pretty much. Not packing it full, but just make sure that you're filling up. There's grooves in there. You can see those grooves, and I'm just going to fill up those grooves full of grease so that there's still some grease in there. Oh, what's that? Oh, no. That's fine. So that's a little gear in the at the very end, and that's what goes onto your that's a hexagon or a hexagon shape. That's what spins your barrel. So your motor goes into the gearbox, it'll spin this, and then those gears will reduce it. So yeah, and that that's still tight on there, so I don't feel like that was slipping. So yeah, we'll chuck some grease in here. So I'm not, like I said before, I'm not packing it, but I'm sort of just, when I wipe my fingers around the splines, it's sort of just filling the gaps with the grease, and that's about a good amount, I reckon. Just really making sure I'm getting it everywhere. Can't be too clean with these sort of jobs. Just got to make sure that it's well lubricated, I guess. We'll chuck that one back in there. There's a flat spot there. Put some grease on that and make sure that goes back in that hole in the middle. That's in. And I'll get myself cleaned up, and then we'll talk about getting these gears back in. So I'll clean up my hands. Let's get these gears in, but before we do, I just want to show you. I'll bring you into the light. You can see in there, I've got heaps of grease in there, covering all them splines, and all that's going to do is just make sure that doesn't have metal on metal contact. Obviously that's what you don't want with anything to do with gears. But yeah, all we're going to do now is reverse the process. There isn't really any muck on here, and sometimes in probably a high quality winch gearbox, there probably will be more grease, and if you're ever changing the grease, it's good to wipe all the old grease out first. But I didn't bother because there was barely any grease in here anyways. So yeah, I'll chuck this one back in. It's sort of tricky, but you just wiggle it and back and forth, and all them splines will align eventually. And then it'll just slot straight in. You'll not slot it in because you'll be able to turn it, but it'll be pretty hard to turn it. And then the next one's the next reduction, so we'll pop that on top. Got to put this one in on an angle, and then you'll be able to flatten it out. And again, just back and forth, and that'll slide in there like that. And then the last one, I'm actually going to put some grease on this last one here, just because gears are a bit bigger, and so I don't know, more grease the better. Just going to chuck a bit on all these gears. Again, it doesn't need to be a whole lot in this section right here, but just will help out again. But yeah, and then we'll just pop that one in. That's in. It's in, rightio. So I'll grab a little bit more grease, pop it down the middle there, so that when this rod goes in, it collects a bit of grease and pushes it through the middle. Yeah. So we'll chuck this back together. I'll just clean up my hands again, and then we'll chuck this back together. For putting it back together, I'm just going to get just a little bit of grease and just put it around this metal surface. Can't really hurt, there's a gasket there, but a little bit of grease can't hurt, I guess. Grease and winches go hand in hand, especially with the high amount of torque that they're outputting. Just creates a whole bunch of heat, and you want to just make sure that there's minimal metal on metal contact between them gears. Rightio, let's chuck this one back on. Chuck that, so that goes in there. We'll line that up, and you can sort of see where those holes go, so right there. I'll chuck these ones back in. And I'll quickly zip these ones up. I just want to point out, you are able to change the orientation from where the clutch engage and disengage sits. So what you do is, so you think about it, how it's going to go in. So these two bolts to the front of the car, and if you want your clutch, obviously you want your clutch in an easy to reach place. So if coming from the top isn't an easy place, what you can do is you take these out, and I'll quickly do it for you here. So say for example, your bull bar, you couldn't get to the clutch easily from the top. Just as an example, what I'm going to show you is how to orientate it. So you've got those 10 3mm Allen head bolts, and you've got this gear on the back. So what you can do is this gear just slides on however you want to put that on. But say for example, so these belts go in the front of your car, so just imagine this end on there, so that will go in your bull bar, on the inside of the bull bar, and say for example you've got like a metal plate over your bull bar then, and you have to like sort of tuck your hand under and like flick it. Well, what you can actually do is you could have it like that, so that your mounts are still going to the front, but this clutch is at the back, and you can have it vice versa. You can have it in any different position, just as long as the bolt holes line up. So there's like 10 degree, I would say there's 10 different positions or whatever, that you can, 10 different orientations you can have it in. But yeah, just thought I'd share that with you on how to orientate your winch. But yeah, I'll get back to putting it all together. Sorry if you guys can hear the rain. It's raining outside, so you might hear that on the shed. But once that's all done up, then you just want to pop that back on there, making sure to line up these two big ones with these two struts, and then yeah, that corner one with this littler strut down here. So what you want to do is just make sure that it's rock solid in engaged mode, and then once you just go to free spool mode, you should be able to very slowly, but it's able to be turned. And then as soon as you go back to, you heard that click, as soon as you go back to clutch engaged, you can hear that it's engaged. So what I'm thinking's happened is, if we go back to free spool, so it's in free spool at the moment. So you can hear that it clicks in a position, but what I think's happened is, if you don't go, so if you're looking at it from the front of the car, as if you were actually doing it out on the tracks, if you're not doing it anti-clockwise, and you go to the engaged position and go to free spool, you go from the free spool to the engaged position, but you go clockwise the normal way, you can, it hasn't fully clicked in. So if I just, so it's in the engaged position right now, or what's supposed to be engaged, but you can hear that there's not an audible click when you go clockwise, like there is when you go anti-clockwise. Hear that? So if you go clockwise though, it doesn't make an audible click, but if you spin it, hear that? So it was supposed to be engaged, but I could still spin that, and then I spun it about a quarter of a turn of the barrel, and then it clicked in. So what I think's happened is he has gone to do that, and then pressed the motor, and the motor's spun. It's in free spool. He thinks it's engaged, but it's not. And so what's happened is ultimately it hadn't clicked in properly, and so yeah, it's something's happened, and it has unwound. That's only a theory, anyways. I'm not 100% sure that that's what happened, but yeah. So I'm going to leave it there for today. I'm going to go get some mounting bolts. Going to go up to Bunnings. I'm going to try and find that square adapter that slots in here. I've got one in there, and I've got two there, and I need two more for this side, and then I need to find some bolts that will go into them. But other than that, I haven't got the control box, so I can't test it yet. I'll have to get the control box off Facebook Marketplace or wherever I find one. I haven't looked yet, but it should be not the hardest thing in the world to find. But yeah, I'll catch you in a part 2. Cheers for watching. If you liked the video, subscribe, and if you have any tips for me for the future, or what I could have done better with greasing up the gearbox or whatever, leave a comment. But yeah, no, I'll catch you in episode 2, eh? Cheers.